You know, every April 1st in France, something really peculiar happens. People, well, they secretly tape paper fish to each other's backs. It's their national prank day, and they call it April Fish. But why a fish, of all things? So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and solve that very strange, very French mystery.
All right, so this is the big question, right? The one we're here to figure out. Why on earth do the French, especially kids, spend their day trying to sneak a paper fish onto someone's back without them noticing? It sounds totally bizarre, I get it, but trust me, there is an absolutely fascinating story behind it all.
Okay, so our very first clue, it's right there in the name. Poisson d'avril. And yeah, it literally translates to April fish. This is what the French called their version of April Fool's Day. And understanding this term is kind of the first key to unlocking the whole puzzle.
All right, first stop on our investigation, we're heading way, way back, all the way to the 16th century. This is probably the most popular theory out there, and it's got all the good stuff. A king, a massive calendar shakeup, and a whole bunch of really, really confused people.
Okay, so you gotta picture this, right? We're in France before the year 1564. New Year's Day wasn't January 1st like it is for us. Nope, it kicked off on March 25th. And the party, the gift giving, all of it went on right up until April 1st. But then this king, King Charles IX, comes along and says, you know what? Let's clean this up. New Year's is gonna be January 1st from now on. Easy enough, right? Well, not exactly. Remember, this is an age with no internet, no 24-hour news. News traveled slowly. So how does this all lead to a prank? Well, here's where it gets really interesting. What was a super common gift to give during that old New Year's celebration? You guessed it, fish. Why? Because the whole festival happened during Lent, or Carême as they say in French, and that's when you couldn't eat meat. So fish was the go-to. So you've got all these people who didn't get the memo about the calendar changing, they're still celebrating in April, and the folks who are in the know, the cool kids in the cities, they start making fun of them. They'd send them joke gifts like fake fish to poke fun at them for being behind the times. And boom, the Poisson d'avril prank is born. Okay, but hold on a second. That feels incomplete, doesn't it? I mean, it explains the April part of April fish, but why did the fish become the big symbol of the joke? Why not a fake chicken or something? There's got to be more to it, and there is. We need to dig a little deeper.
And this is where we get into the really good stuff. See, the fish wasn't just some random thing on the menu. Back in 16th century France, this thing was absolutely packed with meaning, religious meaning, cultural meaning, which made it the absolute perfect symbol for a prank.
Yeah, historian Nadine Cretin really nails it here. She says the most likely reason is that it was all about making fun of Lent. And when you think about it, it makes total sense. Fish was the food you had to eat when you couldn't have the good stuff like meat. It wasn't about feasting and fun, it was literally a symbol of privation, of religious rules and constraints. It's this huge contrast, right? On one hand, you've got meat, which means feasting, celebrating, freedom. And on the other hand, you've got fish, which means rules, duty, doing what you're told. So sticking a paper fish on someone's back, that wasn't just teasing them for being slow. It was a cheeky little jab at the establishment, at the very rules everyone had to live by. But believe it or not, this story doesn't even end there. The plot thickens, as they say, because now we have to look at the French language itself in a bunch of other pranking traditions that were already floating around Europe. Turns out, this whole thing didn't just pop up out of nowhere. And check this out. It turns out pinning stuff to people's backs was already a thing. Like, it was a whole genre of prank. Over in Savoy, they were sticking paper shapes on people during Lent. In Iceland, they'd hook little bags of ash onto people for Ash Wednesday. So the idea was already there. And get this, in the 17th century, calling someone a Poisson d'avril didn't mean you pranked them. It was slang for a naive, gullible fiancé. So the meaning has shifted a ton over the years. All right, let's dive into the language a bit, our little Francais focus for the day, because this adds a whole other layer. See, even the word for fish could be a bit shady in French. Take the word maquereau. Yeah, it means mackerel, the fish. But in slang, it's a pretty nasty word for a pimp. And they weren't done. The word marou, that's codfish, is also used as a really insulting slang term for a woman. So you see what's happening? The word fish itself already had these not so nice double meanings floating around. That made it the perfect word to use for a prank that's also kind of an insult.
Okay, so we've looked at history, we've looked at religion, we've even looked at slang, but there is one more theory. It's a bit out there, I'll admit. Some are saying it's the real story and that its origins are ancient. A leading theory suggests that extraterrestrials landed in a fish-filled lake during antiquity, leading to the veneration of the fish on the first day of the fourth month. Poisson d'avril. Haha, we got you. Come on, you didn't really fall for that, did you? Obviously, that's totally made up, but we just had to do it. Hey, look at that. You've just officially been part of the tradition. And actually, that little joke is the perfect excuse for one last Francais focus. A big hoax like that, a really elaborate practical joke, the French have a great word for it. Canular. Definitely a good one to have in your back pocket come April 1st. All right, all joking aside. Let's pull all these threads together. It's time for the final verdict in the case of the April fish. So what have we actually figured out here? You know, when you see it all laid out, it's pretty clear there isn't just one easy answer. It's not just one thing. It's like a perfect storm, right? You've got this historical accident with the king changing the calendar. You've got this cultural jab at the seriousness of Lent. You've got these weird linguistic quirks where fish can be an insult. And it's all built on this foundation of just general European prank traditions. All of it comes together. So I think the big takeaway here is that this isn't a tradition with a neat little origin story you can put in a box. The Poisson d'avril is more like a rich cultural stew that's been cooking for centuries, you know? It's picked up all these different ingredients and flavors over the years. And honestly, that's what makes it so cool. This deep, kind of mysterious history. So, next time you hear about this, you'll know it's so much more than just sticking a paper fish on your friend's back. It's a joke, sure, but it's also a tiny act of rebellion and it's a piece of living history. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many other little traditions that we see all the time have these incredible, complicated stories hiding right behind them? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.